ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਸੋਚ ਟੀਵੀ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਇੰਦਰਜੀਤ ਕਾਲੀਰਾਏ। ਥੋੜੇ ਕੁ ਚਿਰ ਆਪਣੀ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਰਕੇ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਤੇ ਜੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਜੋ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੀ ਨੇਤਾਗਿਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਪੋਲਿਟਿਕਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟਸ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਜੋ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਨੋਰਮਲੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਗੁਲਰੇਜ਼ ਖਾਨ ਨਾਲ ਜੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਤੋਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ, ਇੱਥੇ ਮੂਵ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਇੱਥੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਕਸੈਸਫੁਲ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਵੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ। ਟੈਕਸਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਰਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਆਪਣੇ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਾਰੋਬਾਰ ਹੈਗਾ ਔਰ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਾਂਗਰਸ ਦੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਵੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਸੀ ਪਿਛਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਆਪਣੇ 24 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਸੀ। ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਹੈ 26 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਟੈਕਸਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਿਪਬਲਿਕਨ ਸੈਨੇਟਰ ਦੀ ਆਵੇਗੀ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਸੀ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਸੀ ਬਾਰੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ, ਆਪਾਂ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਵੱਲ। ਜਦ ਦੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਟਰੰਪ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਟੈਰਿਫ ਸਿਚੁਏਸ਼ਨ ਆ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਜੋ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਲੱਗਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਬਾਹਰਲੇ ਮੁਲਕ ਲਗਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਐਕਸੈਸਿਵ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਰੈਸਿਪਰੇਕਲ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਉਹ ਚਲਾਉਣਾ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਨੇ। ਜਾਣੀ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਮੁਲਕ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਡਕਟਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ 100% ਟੈਕਸ ਲਗਾਉਣਾ ਹੈ, ਟੈਰਿਫ ਲਗਾਉਣਾ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਵੀ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਡਕਟ ਤੇ 100% ਟੈਕਸ ਲਾਵੇਗੀ। ਔਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਚਰਚਾ ਵੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਕਈ ਲੋਕ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਮਹਿੰਗਾਈ ਆ, ਜੇ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਚਾਲੂ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਨੇ ਬਾਹਰਲੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਡਕਟਸ ਤੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਹਿੰਗਾਈ ਹੋਰ ਆ ਜਾਏਗੀ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਆਪਣੇ ਗੁਲਰਾਜ਼ ਖਾਨ ਜੋ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਕਾਂਗਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ, ਹੁਣ ਸੈਨੇਟ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਹੈ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਪਬਲਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਆ ਇਹ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਫਾਇਦੇਮੰਦ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ। ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਡਿਸਕਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਜੋ ਇਹਨੇ ਲਿਖੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਜੋ ਅੱਜ ਖਬਰ ਆਈ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਐਮਾਜ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਮਨ ਹੈਗੀ ਔਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਨੀਚੇ ਜਿਹਨੇ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਲਿਖੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਆਪਣੇ ਪੋਲਿਟਿਕਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਸ ਸੈਨੇਟਰ ਨੇ ਬਜਟ ਦੀ ਵੋਟ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਾਂਗਰਸ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਬਿਗ ਬਿਊਟੀਫੁਲ ਬਿੱਲ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ, ਉਹਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਉਸ ਸੈਨੇਟਰ ਨੇ ਵੋਟ ਪਾਈ ਹੈ। 3 ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਹੀ ਪੁੱਛ ਲੈਣਾ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਗੁਲਰੇਜ਼ ਖਾਨ ਨਾਲ ਟੈਕਸਸ ਤੋਂ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਬੁੱਕ ਨੰਬਰ 1 ਹੈਗੀ ਨੇ ਐਮਾਜ਼ਨ ਤੇ। ਆਓ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਗੁਲਰੇਜ਼ ਖਾਨ। ਗੁਲਰੇਜ਼, ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ। We've discussed our stuff many times before regarding your candidacy, regarding the thing and post-election. Today, we would like to discuss your book that's available. It's now listed as number 1. So tell us more about tariffs. What are they? How do they work?
Okay. Inderjit ji, good evening to you and to your viewers within the United States on Aaj Kal America, and glad tidings to everybody overseas, to all your viewers. And thank you again for having me on your show. It's always a pleasure. And thank you for the kind words about my book and a very kind introduction. So Inderjit ji, as a name suggests, they are taxes or duties imposed by government on imported goods. They're typically used to raise price of foreign products, making domestic alternatives more competitive. And they're a common tool in trade policy. And historically, they've been used by countries to generate revenue and protect domestic industries from foreign competition, which we had seen quite a bit until 2024. How do they work? They're paid by the importers, usually domestic companies or distributors who bring foreign goods into the company. And the governments collect tariffs from these businesses, and the cost is often passed on to the consumers through higher prices. So to your question, who pays for them? The consumer in that specific country is the one who bears the cost of those higher prices. So even though a foreign country's products are being taxed, the end user which in this case is a United States consumer or a business, often bears the burden of increased costs.
Okay. That sort of is one of the questions that was going around over the discussion of tariffs, that it would make things more expensive. Now, most recently, there's been discussions of Canada imposing a tax or a fee on IT companies doing business transactions with Canada. It appears
Right.
that Trump's actions and plans have put a pause on that. Canadians and Americans are still talking. How would we, as the consumer, find these tariffs beneficial to us?
Inderjit ji, I'm going to get into to answer this question, crux of my book. So first of all, President Trump's reciprocal tariffs, they are not, it's not an immediate fix, even when he announced it during his candidacy. This is a long-term goal. It'll take 5 to 10 years to restore American might and to really make America great once again, just like our president says. So although it is a higher price for the American consumer for those specific products, we got to get into a little bit of history here. So as you know, the Rust Belt in the Midwest, states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, hundreds of thousands of jobs all these years have been lost to outsourcing. Our companies taking manufacturing of automobiles and other vital products to other countries for lower cost. Okay, that is a lower cost to the American consumers. However, people may not realize their fellow Americans, to the tunes of thousands, have lost their livelihood in America. A lot of these towns in these states, they are ghost towns now. They're deserted. People have lost everything they had. So when it's something is inexpensive, when it's cheap, which, for example, I'll use China's case. China uses, the word is, they don't practice labor laws the way we do in the United States. They don't have, the workers there don't have rights like we have in the United States, like overtime pay and union protection, so on and so forth. China deals with participates in currency manipulation. So if you mix all this, these are the ingredients for them to lower the price of their product and thereby selling it at a relatively lower price to American consumer. But this over here, each time we buy a non-American made product, we should realize if we are buying some, again, from a South Asian country, again, in this case, China, that our fellow American is losing his job. So what reciprocal tariffs do are, in the long run, the goal is to enhance reshoring, steel manufacturing in the United States, semiconductor manufacturing in the United States, automobile manufacturing in the United States. So when you do that, yes, because the quality of American made product is higher. And of course, when you hire Americans in America, we got to follow the labor rules, labor laws, wage policies, and pay them accordingly. And of course, when you combine all that, the price is a little bit higher. At the same time, we are helping our fellow Americans gain their jobs back and enhancing manufacturing, and again bringing back reshoring to the United States. So this is a we have to do it with a sense of economic patriotism. Again, we'll bear the brunt for some time, but in the long run, all these things coming back will make us not only financially stronger, but overall as a powerhouse as well. So yes, in the long run, we will be benefited. But if somebody wants to see a short-term gain, uh, that's not uh, what these tariffs are focused on.
I get that. And the response from the opposition is technically on the most immediate effect, whether we're talking about Walmart, whether we're talking about Target. When we're going to these places to shop, the fact that I can buy something at Target or Walmart and yes, manufactured in China or manufactured abroad, I pay, let's say, $5 for that. The fact that the tariff will now make that maybe $9, or if we're looking at the wholesale price and the tariffs based on that, maybe it'll go to $7, $8. The counter from the opposition politicians who are opposing these tariffs are more on the immediate impact. I accept the homemade products uh, have a better quality, do provide more locally. And if we've been looking at the media reports, there are talks that those sort of various manufacturing companies are bringing production back to the US. Just last week, there was a talk of a company bringing in manufacturing and creating about 800 jobs. You brought up the auto industry, very similar impacts over there. Steel has been a big one. And having grown up in England, we saw the steel industry in England literally get decimated. Shipbuilding, which was pretty big in England, it was pretty big in the US, is totally gone because other places can make these better, or not necessarily better, but cheaper. Um, I believe we've seen that somewhere in the aero industry where some quality control factors are coming into play. Things are produced elsewhere, they're brought in. Somewhere there's a quality chain. My theory is equivalent to the supply chain. The quality chain is also disrupted. Um, Fixes are not immediate. A lot of things are sort of, if it's broke, don't fix it, just buy a new one. Going back on this, we have become a dependent nation or a dependent economy because everything we're buying comes from overseas. Most of our homegrown stuff is mainly in the farming industry. Our IT services sector, we farmed it out into outsourcing. We found some technical issues that are appearing over there. Um, but the big thing that in the last conversation was it's going to take a short period of time, basically, for industry in the US to ramp up and start producing locally, the jobs that are necessary to produce all this stuff. And that delay, which will build up the economy, which will provide more local jobs, it appears that most of the population is not willing to weather that storm, if we can call it a storm, because products from abroad have gone more expensive. Local stuff could become, in my view, it could become competitive. And if we're buying more local stuff, local industry will be ramping up to produce that much more. How do you convince the members of the public who might come in the next few months see these price increases? So far, being told, and we're seeing that many of these importers have not passed on these tariffs. Some of these tariffs are still in negotiation. We've seen reports where China's coming to meet, somewhere in Europe, and the Canadians are having discussions, the Europeans are having discussions. There's between England and the US on these tariffs. As these deals come to play, what we are seeing is the other nations are dropping their tariffs. and the fear that this will impact their exports to the US, maybe not immediately, but over a period of time. During this transition phase, it is possible that the impact of the local tariffs, because they may not be as high as what we once thought they were. I mean, go back a couple of months, we were talking about 160, 100, 200% tariff on Chinese products because China was not discussing or willing to play. Now they've had discussions and those numbers have come down significantly. However, even if those things that are made in China, made elsewhere, Taiwan, Korea, wherever they're made, if there's a likelihood that it's going to cost me or you or our neighbors 50% more, how would you explain or have the neighbor understand that it's worth the sacrifice in the short term?
Inderjit, you have summarized, this great question. Thank you. The whole, the global debate or argument on reciprocal tariffs in this question. So I'm going to answer it in a few parts. Firstly, as we know, for several decades, our United States trade policy has emphasized globalization, pre-Trump era, open markets, diplomatic engagement. So the thinking was that free trade would bring cheaper goods to consumers, create global interdependence, and help spread the democratic values through economic partnership. As a result, many unfair practices like subsidies and tariffs from other countries were tolerated for the sake of broader alliance and long-term peace. However, and you'll vouch to it, this approach has also hollowed out many American industries. Like we talked earlier, manufacturing jobs moved overseas, trade deficits have widened. Uh, Again, going back to the Rust Belt, it has suffered. Uh, and President Trump, as you know, is one of the first leaders to proactively and aggressively challenge these practices, uh, to use tariffs as a leverage to create a level playing field. Now, how do you asked about convincing the opposition or somebody who's looking for an immediate gain and not thinking about long term. So I'm going to share which like what is the goal of reciprocal tariff plan. Okay, it encourages a fairer trade practice. uh, we push these nations to open their markets, reduce trade barriers that have prevented U.S. goods from entering. In his recent Middle East tour, right after April 2nd, Liberation Day, when he announced the official announcement of reciprocal tariffs, he went to Middle East. He secured $2 trillion in pledges, and overall, uh, the word is, the news is, which the White House has put forward, he secured already $5 trillion. One of the billionaires from Middle East is investing 20 billion in the United States to create AI data centers. So that's just one of the examples. Okay, going back to the goals. Secondly, of course, bringing back manufacturing jobs to the United States. By making foreign goods more expensive, the plan is designed to create incentives for companies to reshore production in the United States. This would not only help reduce trade deficit, but also revitalize our domestic industries. Next would be, we support our domestic producers as well. Uh, it reduces competition from overseas, and in a way, it provides a competitive advantage to United States producers. Uh, especially small and medium-sized business. It is what will help the small guy in the United States uh, getting a shot at being successful again. Uh, of course, we will reduce the reliance on imports, and those tariffs in the long run, we will support our domestic initiatives. Example, all these towns which have, the population has moved. They are deserted ghost towns now. A lot of towns in the United States due to outsourcing. So envision, I would, in order to convince all, my argument with these people would be, and to the opposition, that envisioning these towns being uh, becoming economic powerhouses in the long run. So that will bring not only economic prosperity, that will create whole new economic systems in those regions, uh, and the revenue generated, it will uh, help the future infrastructure products and provide we can provide taxing uh, uh, incentives to stimulate the uh, economic growth. Next part, a third part of my answer would be, which I have termed in my book as patriot premium. If you are really a nationalist, if you really love America, if you really believe in made in USA brand, if you're a true patriot, then one should be willing to pay this premium. I know of somebody who's a agriculturist in West Texas here, and due to recent tariffs, and he does cotton exports throughout the world, and his business has suffered. However, him being a true patriot, he his own words, he told me, Gulrez, I'm willing to pay the price as a true American, because they had earlier they were getting a lot of competition from due to uh, cheaper prices because of foreign made products uh, from South Asian countries, especially China. But now, when he envisions as a patriot that eventually uh, this will bring prosperity back to the United States and start rebuilding his domestic industry, including agriculture, he does not mind paying that price for it.
Okay. We'll take a small back after the break. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ, ਆਪਣੇ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਤੇ ਗੱਲ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਗੁਲਰੇਜ਼ ਖਾਨ ਨਾਲ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਦੇ ਫਾਇਦੇ ਚ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ। ਉਹ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ Amazon ਤੇ ਨੰਬਰ 1 ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ। ਆਪਾਂ ਜੁੜਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਵਾਪਸ, ਹੋਰ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਗੁਲਰੇਜ਼ ਨਾਲ। We'll come back.
ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਜੀ।
ਓਕੇ ਜੀ, ਹਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ, ਸਾਂਝੀ ਸੋਚ ਟੀਵੀ ਤੇ। ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਫੇਰ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਗੁਲਰੇਜ਼ ਖਾਨ ਨਾਲ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਆਪਣੇ Amazon ਤੇ ਬੈਸਟ ਸੈਲਰ ਹੈਗੀ ਨੇ। ਉਹ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਔਰ ਕਿਉਂ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਫਾਇਦੇ 'ਚ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ। ਆਓ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਜੁੜਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਗੁਲਰੇਜ਼ ਖਾਨ ਨਾਲ। Gulrez bhai, welcome back after the break. We discussed the tariffs, and you've covered most of how they can benefit on the basis of domestic production, local job creation. Um, yes, there's a short-term impact, and your comment was that as patriots, as nationalists, for the short term, it may just be a small price to pay. If there's any impacts price-wise on the consumer goods we buy. On the other side, it could make exports easier. Therefore, reciprocal impact would be more jobs locally. We're producing more, we're exporting more. Because we're buying less of the goods, your comment was that the import-export deficit, the trade deficit, would be reduced in respect of that. As we know from the last election, President Trump, 47-45, he got a sixth electoral college victory. Is basically a sweep, if we can say that, because there's only a handful of states that remained on the blue category. As far as voting goes, the nation is divided by a few million votes. So if we say President Trump got 75 million and the other side got 71 million, while there is a significant vote advantage and there is a majority mandate for President Trump to push through his agenda, implement his policies on trade and domestic policy, and all those things. We do have a numbers wise, even though those 75 million or whatever that number is, voters who voted for President Trump, on the counter side, we have close to another 70 million who didn't vote for him. If they are complaining about these tariffs, if they're talking about the impending inflation as a result of this, would we say they're not patriots?
Well, again, Inderjit, vital question. Uh, uh, well, we cannot say that, we would not label them as not being patriots. However, if they are, there could be a lot of reasons for them not voting for, in the last election for Republican Party or for President Trump. If they uh, really understood the whole uh, the reciprocal tariff structure, the basis of it, and how in the long run, not only it supports our domestic industry and manufacturing, creates jobs, but also uh, makes our country safer in the sense, in our defense industry revitalization right now, uh, right after President Trump uh, took office in January. So there's a lot of emphasis on revitalizing our defense production, and a lot of those ingredients used, like semiconductors and all the technological devices, they are produced overseas. Uh, if we were to produce, and let's say during, for example, the Ukraine uh, Russia war, due to that conflict, and you can say in the conflict in the Middle East too, a lot of supply chains they were stalled. Thereby, we were not able to get those products in a timely manner. So imagine having those industries in the United States. We would not have to rely on foreign countries for those products, thereby manufacturing those products at home and enhancing our defense production, defense equipment production as well, and making our country safer. Secondly, uh, the deficit. A country grows, how do they grow richer is when they are able to export more and as compared to the imports, and thereby getting the dollar back in the United States. Uh, Here, by when we buy something cheap, which is made in Vietnam or China, we are sending that money to uh, those countries. It's not benefiting our uh, our population. So my point is, if these people understood the whole structure and how eventually it'll decrease the trade benefits, and not only, of course, it'll help the a lot of Wall Street has those immense those corporations have been helped, but the guy on the main street will be helped as well. His economic prosperity will come into being too. Uh, most likely they would switch their vote in the next election to voting for Republican Party. Uh, but I think the understanding probably is not deep enough where they could see the long term benefits. If they did, I think they would have changed their uh, voting strategy as well. But at the same time, I would not say uh, they are not patriots. Whatever viewpoint they have, I've been in the political realm for many years now. Uh, whatever political viewpoints they have, uh, they're welcome to have those, and I can agree to disagree on those. But still, they are, the beauty of our country is our foundational values, freedom and and liberty and the free market enterprise capitalistic structure. So they are, and we are a constitutional republic, a true democracy where everybody has a voice. Uh, uh, but at the same time, I would not label them as not being patriotic. It's just that their understanding is not deep enough yet. Uh, I feel, uh, and I say it humbly, that if anybody who reads my book, and it took me several months actually to research and understand myself at a deeper level and to be able to come up with this publication. Uh, somebody, any American who reads it, uh, I can almost guarantee that they would feel differently about reciprocal tariffs and why they were initiated or implemented on April the 2nd. Their viewpoint of reciprocal tariffs will be totally different uh, as compared to what they have now, assuming they have a short-term gain understanding of it.
Sure. Well, thank you on that. My other question is related to tariffs, but it's an experience that sort of rings from these tariffs. Um, what we're experiencing as we study more on the tariffs is that the US has been on the lower end of the tariffs, if that be the case. When in the past we've negotiated trade deals with other nations, we've indirectly or directly consented to a tariff being applied to American produced goods and not necessarily a tariff being applied to that we get from other countries. So somehow this imbalance occurred, but to me, it feels like I would blame the administration, not this one in particular, but previous administrations, previous Treasury secretaries, uh, secretaries of state, those people who are involved in the nitty gritty negotiations with other countries, specifically related to trade. For the example of China, I know President Nixon opened the doors to China, then President Clinton took further steps on it, and China came to a status of favorable trading nation and all these other sort of specifications. But never once did America turn around and say, "Okay, you shouldn't tariff our goods. We won't tariff your goods." So this reciprocal concept was never there. We silently or we objected maybe mildly, but we accepted that. Various politicians in the past have brought up these tariff issues and how they impact trade. While they brought the issues up, it's those same individuals who are now standing on the other side. So politics is just a game on which side the wind blows for you, and you may be on that side as it may be. One day you're for something, the next day you're against it because the opposition is now. Regardless of that, what I see is a correlation similar to the carbon footprint. The European nations and America and this Paris Accord seems to be one place where these countries have accepted their hands being tied behind their backs when it comes to carbon regulation and the carbon footprint as a whole. But countries, China and a few others, have been exempted from this carbon ceiling, is the right word for it, on how much carbon they can have. Being given a window of 10, 20 years to have whatever issues they need to have with the environment, the carbon footprint, while we, in the US at least, and some European countries, are taxing our people. I mean, California is a prime example. We're paying technically a carbon tax on our gasoline. Just yesterday, this 1st of July, we had an increase in our gas tax. Why do you think the politicians of the past have to allow this in parity? Because there's no parable equality in there. It's inequality in these charges. Why did the Americans, why did the Europeans, or why did the Western nations accept a non-equitable environment when it came to tariffs? And I carry that over to the carbon tax, although we're not talking about the carbon tax. But I see a similarity in both these arenas. Could it have been fixed earlier? And now that we're talking about fixing it, and as you described, it is going to take time because you can't bring these things into play overnight. So changes have to take place. Manufacturers have to retool and everything else to bring products home. For that window, we're going to suffer a price change, price complexity because the imported goods have gone up. Hopefully, down the road, we'll have our goods relatively priced and better quality. We'll buy. Our economy will be then recycling itself. How did we get into this mess? I think that's really what the summary question is. We have an inequality. Our past administrations brought it to be, and now when it comes to fixing it, it's painful. Could not somebody have seen that?
Well, in the all the other politicians before. I'll start with an example. 2022, when Joe Biden was president of our country, almost 2 years into his presidency, we had the highest inflation in 40 years. So it was a Democrat-led government led by the Democrat Party. In his first term, President Trump, when he joined office in 2016, when he won, the tax Reform Act he passed, it had not been passed since 1979. So basically, that decreased our income tax brackets and that reduced the capital gains tax, thereby giving small businesses and entrepreneurs to invest more in the economy, create more jobs. These politicians in the past, especially the Democrat administrations, even during Obama's 2 terms, I don't believe that they did not have the knowledge or insight or understanding of this. However, uh, let me put it this way: they did not care about America much. In other words, they first of all lacked that kind of patriotism or Americanism, which is required for leadership of America to restore America's might and excellence and economic prosperity. They could have done it, but it's only President Trump who, uh, in his first term, initiated some remarkable tax incentives. Uh, and then his second term, as you know, he's already uh, setting a great example in this sphere. Uh, they were just not bold enough or proactive enough um, uh, to care for the American worker. I believe, they were more focused on impressing foreign governments, maybe China, maybe their friends in Europe, uh, we pay 33% of the total budget of United Nations, and this is our taxpayer money. We uh, we through U.S. aid, when President Trump took office this earlier this year, we were sending hundreds of billions of dollars to other countries and that's again our hardworking taxpayers money. And there is no, and these are grants, and these are uh, you know something which is not to come back to our economy. So basically, all these uh, governments before President Trump, when I say previous governments, I mean under the Democrats, uh, they did not care about America. They did not care about uh, the American people. Truly, if they had, they would not have allowed uh, our all these industries to be outsourced, uh, or in a way sold to foreign entities. So if they were cognizant of the fact that each time we encourage a manufacturer of the United States to go to create their factory in Philippines, or taking steel manufacturing away, or giving away our energy independence, they in the process they're also making America uh, less safer, enhancing our federal deficit, fiscal deficit, uh, and playing with the livelihoods, playing with uh, the uh, the heart and soul of America, which is a small business owner, uh, a daily grassroots worker. So they did not care, and they could have. It's just, as you know, President Trump, he has I would say he has the guts to uh, effectuate it. That's it. That's the only difference.
And based on some of the stuff that you're saying, in correlation to previous administrations and the last one of the things that comes out in previous arguments as well, and in 16 when Trump was campaigning, and people were arguing that the protectionist policies are going to isolate, and they're going to put the USA on a island, or some sort of in an enclosed environment where sort of protectionist policies isolate America out of the rest of the world, and we need to be a player world. But when it comes to the economy, at least, while we want to trade with the rest of the world, it needs to be a fair playing field. NAFTA was supposed to be one of these environments, but even NAFTA did not succeed as well as it should have done, because corporations just relocated their manufacturing to the south of the border. So, as much as it was supposed to be free trade traffic between Canada, Mexico, and America, it didn't ultimately work out that way, because there was no checks and balances, if that's the right word, on what's happening. It's cheaper to produce something. I'll just pick up and move to where there's cheap labor. The only people who are then stuck in the country that we are, providing services and products in the US, is the service sector industry. It's like your business. You are providing a service. You don't really have much that you produce except care for people. Therefore, a lot of the stuff that you buy for use in your business may be manufactured locally, may be manufactured abroad. But somebody in your business can't just pick up and take the business to Mexico because they're there. The services you're providing are in this country, are in a specific location in the country. So many of these are car manufacturers, electronics manufacturers, those who physically produce things. Yeah, they got the advantage that free trade allows me to make things in Mexico and bring them over here, because now it's cheaper for me. And like you said, Wall Street, the corporations, they saw the bottom line.
their penny pinchers or the bean counters saw the bottom line. Hey, if we can make it producer, we can cheaper, we can reduce our human resources costs, we can reduce our payroll and profit for us, because all those people who went to produce in Mexico or who ship their products to be made elsewhere, they don't reduce the prices. And yes, so to China, you can go anywhere in the sort of that part of the world, you can buy things that are significantly cheap. They're cheaper to produce. Manufacturing definitely benefits. But those people who bring them here, they don't necessarily reduce the price. So for the case of GM or Ford or any one of those companies, they did not pass on the savings in manufacturing. They put that in their bank balance and gave it to their shareholders or boosted their profits somehow with executive bonuses. Now these tariffs are being talked about. It's going to be more expensive for them. Guess who they want to push the price change to? The consumer. So, yeah, the previous politicians probably were fundraising with the businesses who were giving them these ideas. And then most likely there was something coming from the other side that they were encouraged to do this. But they weren't forward thinking enough on how the country would actually deal with this deficit. Because ultimately what we have is a trade deficit and it's just getting bigger. While I understand that these are the solutions to make, at least bring equity and maybe turn the cycle around deficit to positive cash flow, we have to have a change, and we have still politicians serving in the houses of Congress and Senate who are adamantly opposed to these tariffs. So yes, we need to educate the people, and your book does that. And like you're saying, if they read it and they digest it, hopefully these people will understand that sort of a short-term gain may provide long-term gain. But right now, I'm so thank you for that, and I hope the book stays on #1 on Amazon for a long time to come, and it brings in sort of the exposure that it excuse me, needs, and all the success to it. And we'll talk about other stuff at a future session when your campaign for Senate is more active and running full speed. So thanks for this time, and thanks for the education on the tariff mechanism and why we need it. Thank you on that, and we'll look forward to meeting again.
Inderjit, thank you so much for having me on your show again. It means a lot. I just want to end by saying that our new American century is defined by economic nationalism and technological innovation and commitment to self-sufficiency. So it's time when America again controls its future and plays by its rules. Manufactured, through reciprocal tariffs, uh, will bring home American workers and empower them, and then small businesses will flourish. So with this renewed commitment, uh, technological leadership, and America is poised to shape the future of the world economy.
Well, thank you, and look forward to meeting again and discussing other stuff. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਸੋਚ ਟੀਵੀ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਗੁਲਰੇਜ਼ ਖਾਨ ਨਾਲ ਜੋ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਟੈਕਸਸ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੀ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਕਾਫੀ ਸਕਸੈਸਫੁਲ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਪਬਲਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਫਿਰ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਆਪਣੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬੈਨੀਫਿਟ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਆਪਾਂ ਡਿਸਕਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਰਕੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਮਰੀਕਨਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਰਿਸਿਪਰੀਕਲ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਔਰ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਜੋ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਬਾਹਰਲੇ ਮੁਲਕਾਂ ਤੇ ਲੱਗੇਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਦ ਸਮਾਨ ਇੰਪੋਰਟ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਚਾਈਨਾ ਦਾ ਸਮਾਨ ਜਦ ਇੰਪੋਰਟ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਉਹ ਮਹਿੰਗਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਔਰ ਮਹਿੰਗਾਈ ਵਧੇਗੀ ਗੁਲਰੇਜ਼ ਬਾਈ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਵੀ ਥੋੜੇ ਚਿਰ ਲਈ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਇਕਨੋਮੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਰਕ ਪਏਗਾ ਜੇ ਰਿਸਿਪਰੀਕਲ ਟੈਰਿਫਸ ਲੱਗੂਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਡਕਸ਼ਨ ਆ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਾਰਖਾਨੇ ਆ ਇਹ ਆਪਣੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਡਕਸ਼ਨ ਵਧੇਗੀ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਇਕਨੋਮੀ ਦਾ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ ਸੋ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਦੇਵੋ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਅਗਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਮੈਂ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਸੋਚ ਟੀਵੀ ਤੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਇੰਦਰਜੀਤ ਕਾਲੀਰਾਏ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਜੀ।